couple minutes, just 2 seats over there, ladies. One there.
Anybody was going to sit beside him. And
Okay, my name is Donald Nickerson. I'm the moderator for tonight's meeting. The candidates before you have taken the chance and run for office for this town. It's nice to see people that are interested in taking office in this town. Sometimes we haven't been able to have them. What I'm going to do is give you a little rundown on the format. All the questions will be coming from the moderator. No questions from the audience, please. No responses, no comments. In all fairness to all the candidates, we keep your comments to yourselves, please. The moderator will ask the candidates to only answer to the questions that I ask. If you have a question that you don't understand, feel free to ask me. They've all had a half hour to look over the questions. Most questions will be answered by all the individuals, all the candidates. There are exceptions. If there's one or two questions that pertain to the office, then that person running for that office will be asked that question. I would ask if you have a cell phone to please turn it on vibrate or off. The first question I'm going to ask is the only one that I put in there. The rest of the questions came from an independent source. Did I just hear a phone?
she just turned it on.
Turning on.
You're in trouble.
All right. The question that I'm going to ask at the beginning, maybe the candidates will question why I asked that, but when I first started campaigning several years ago, every time I went to the senior center, I was asked this question. And I was told by a first person that was very active in politics in this town, that's a question you should always ask. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start from this end here. We'll go around. The next time, I think they pick you up, the mics are set so they'll pick all of us up where they are. The next time I will go to Mr. Croft and then so on, and we'll start first each time. I'll try to keep it simple. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to the question. Now you say 3 minutes isn't very long, but it is if it's a quick answer. So feel free to stretch it to 3 minutes or answer when you can. At the end of the program, the candidates will each have 5 minutes to respond, close out, make their whatever they'd like to say to the people in the audience. After the program is over, I'm sure all of them would be glad to answer any of your questions. If you want to come up and talk to them, or you can mingle. But for now, we want to keep it strictly between the moderator and the candidates. First question, I'll start with Ms. Smith. If I pronounce your name wrong, please correct me. How long have you lived in Warren, and how many town meetings have you attended?
I've lived in Warren for just about 20 years, and I've attended, let's say, upwards of 15 anyway. When we first moved here, I worked full-time in Worcester, and my work hours really kind of prohibited me from being able, didn't get home till 8 o'clock at night usually, so it made it difficult. But as soon as I decided to be a stay-home mom, that's when I was able to get more involved and attend the meetings more regularly.
I should have said also before I asked that question, as I ask each person a question, they can introduce themselves, make a short statement, and then address the question if they'd like to. So if you'd like to do that now, I'll give you the opportunity.
I'll just say I'm Carrie Schmidt. I'm here primarily, I'm running unopposed, so nobody's running against me unless there's some writing campaign of which I'm unaware. But I'm here primarily because my predecessor, Deb Ledger, served as tax collector for 20 years for the town. And, you know, sometimes people come in and say, wow, where's Debbie? Who are you? Now, I've worked in the office with her for almost 4 years, so, you know, I'm a face that's been there, but I just want to formally introduce myself and, yeah, tell you that I'm hoping to get Debbie's job.
Thank you. Yes, Bob, right? Brian, that's right, you got two Brian. Brian, before you answer the question, you won't be expected to spend 3 minutes. You can introduce yourself and then the question will start.
Okay. My name's Brian Croft. I've been living in Warren since 2003. My family and I came here for that place in the country with it just north of Boston. I wanted to say thank you for giving us this chance. There's not much else to really say.
First question will be the same. How long have you lived in Warren? How many town meetings have you attended?
Okay, since 2003 we moved here. I've attended a small handful of meetings. My work schedule was always varying with the meetings.
The meeting I'm pertaining to actually a town meeting, actual annual or special town meetings.
I've attended a few.
Okay. Ed?
Ed Crickwitz, I'm running for planning board. Me and my wife moved here about 7 years ago. I got interested in town politics about 2 years ago when the solar farms went up on Little Rest Road. Decided to get more active and to try to help my neighbors out. I lived here 7 years, and I've attended probably 4 or 5 meetings.
Thank you. Mary?
Hi, my name is Mary Bellerose, and I have lived on and off my entire life in Warren. Every summer, we spent the entire summer in Warren as children. And 8 years ago, I was asked to become my aunt, Nellie Obartuck's legal guardian, and I started spending every weekend here with Nellie. And then, for a short period of time, 3 years, I had to move to Pittsburgh for my work, and I commuted back to Warren every other week. So I have been full-time living in Warren the last 3 years. The last few months I've been staying on the South Coast finishing off my master's because I live in the busiest corner in Warren. The traffic doesn't bother me, but in the past 5 months there's been 8 dogs that have moved in. So when you're trying to finish your master's, you need it to be a little quiet. Since I've come to Warren, I actually have gone to 2 town meetings, a special town meeting, and actually last town meeting I actually had the nerve to get up and speak to two issues.
Thank you. Mr. Nardi?
Good evening. My name is Dario Nardi. I'm a candidate for selectman. My family and I have lived in Warren for 14 years. I've served on our finance committee for the past 3 years, since 2011. As far as meetings I've attended, I believe that number is between 7 and 8. Due to my work schedule earlier when we moved out here, it was a little bit difficult for me to attend meetings. I became more involved with town politics. Mid to late 2000s, my children have since gotten older. It's afforded me more time to invest time in the town and take a general interest in other areas. So that's probably pretty much it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Corriveau?
My name is Brian Corriveau. I live on Crouch Road on the south side of Marks Mountain. I've been in this town 28 years, and does watching them on TV count?
No, annual town meeting.
Does it,
No.
watching them on, no? Well, I've watched a lot of them on TV.
What I was getting at is just how many they actually physically attended. It's not a problem. It's something that I was always asked, and I said, when I get a chance, I'm gonna do the same thing.
I can answer it a little further.
Sure.
One, which was the last one. And, but this goes towards, you know, participation, et cetera, et cetera. Just because government should function properly without having to monitor it. But I'm being totally honest, the last one, and now I ended up here, so I don't know, you know, but I feel this town right now needs me, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have another question coming up, and this time we'll start with Brian Croft. Would you like to see comments and concerns brought back on the selectmen's agenda?
Yes, I would.
Would you want to, you can just, yes is fine, or elaborate. Either way, I'll pass along if you're all set.
Yes, I would.
Ted?
I would love to see him back on the agenda. Obviously, some limits would have to apply as they had in the past, and anytime you can get resident input on any subject is a plus for the town.
Thank you.
I think it's very important that people have the ability to come and speak their mind. In this country, we do have that right of privilege. Sometimes our delivery may not be correct, or sometimes it may not be the appropriate time, but I think that we, as residents of Warren, should have the ability to be able to come and speak to our selectmen or whatever board that we'd like to speak to, as long as it's done in a careful and respectful manner.
Dario?
I absolutely think they should be returned. I think it's extremely important that our taxpayers and our residents in town have the ability to voice their concerns. The lines of communication in our town, in my time being here, I think have been shut off at times. I think it's important that you hear all aspects from all residents at all times, and everybody should be heard when they're asked to be heard, or when they have a comment or concern. It should be addressed by anyone who it is brought to, whether it be the select board or any other board or any other committees. It is important that the lines of communication remain open at all times.
Thank you.
Well, I'm probably the reason why I was taken off, but all I was trying to do was ask questions to the selectmen. And without a doubt, the more transparency, the more clarity that everybody has, that's why I'm running.
Okay, thank you. Just a side comment. Regarding going to a selectmen's meeting for comments, you are allowed now, hopefully, we'll be back, 5 minutes for comments, but every citizen has a right to notify the Board of Selectmen in ample time to be on the agenda, and that gives you more time to speak, so that's something that everybody should be aware of. Number 3, we will start with this. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did I miss you?
That's
Yeah,
okay, that's all right. I agree, however, I don't really have a whole lot to add, but I do want to say that I agree that selectmen's comments and concerns should be there. There should be a limit, because the selectmen do have business, daily grind stuff that they have to attend to, and, you know, it's unreasonable to expect them to sit here and listen, you know, for an hour or longer. But there are times when things come up, they need to be addressed right away, and there's not necessarily time to go on the agenda for next week, so.
Thank you. Remind me if I do that again. I'm just used to coming around to the end. Number 3 would be for Ed. What is your opinion about posting the approved minutes of all department meetings on the town's website?
The planning board already does this, which I think is a plus for the town. If you miss a meeting, you can see what was said. I think it's a plus for any department to put their minutes on the website. Obviously, there could be a cost involved to pay someone to do that. So a little extra time for some of the longer meetings that some boards take. Yeah, I think it's a plus. Any transparency in the town is a plus.
Thank you. All right.
I think that we live in a digital age, and I think most of us have busy lives. So if we miss the few televised meetings that are available, we really have missed out a lot. And if you miss a selectmen's meeting, there's only 3 times it's going to be televised, and unfortunately those are kind of family times. So I think it's important that most of us are literate with computers. Kids are really into computers. I think it's important that everything be put out there. All of our meetings are not televised, all of the boards are not televised, so it gives everybody the opportunity to know what's going on. It gives you the ability to be able to read the minutes, understand what's going on in your town, and if you have input or you have a comment or concern, you at least can direct it to the board that you see, because right now, we don't know what's going on.
Thank you. Well,
I think it's extremely important that we open up all lines of communication to the public, whether it be through minutes, at meetings. The minutes are important. Not all of our residents have the means to be able to come to the meetings, so whatever we can put on our town website or make available to the residents for them to see at home, whether it be on a local cable access channel or post on the website is key. I ran on transparency communications. We need to open up all lines. It better informs our public, our population, and allows them to have more knowledge to be able to approach us and to approach people who work for the town and to make educated decisions moving forward based on what they've read or seen or heard. It is extremely important that we have that stuff available to all at all times.
Thank you. Ryan?
I just want to say quickly, I wish that everybody that in this room had the opportunity to put the questions together, and my responses are going to be very quick on these because I want to save the time for them. Yes.
Okay. Just to address that, and, oh, yeah, thank you.
Not only do I concur with my colleagues, I can't think of any reason why they wouldn't be. I mean, it does not make sense to me. And it's not, I don't think it's a cost-driven thing. I think it's just a button click and.
I agree, exactly the same thing, everybody's saying basically the same thing. We should all be aware and open to all the lines of communication. Communication's key.
Yeah, just a side note, all meetings of boards have to take minutes. Secretary, whoever is assigned takes minutes. Those minutes should be readily available within a certain amount of time, and I don't think there's any charge. I think we don't charge to put that on. We have a person, one or two persons in the town, don't we, that do that. So I do too, I think. Well, you can say that till after.
Well, my question is actually really simple. I don't know what Mr. Cross was running for.
Assessor.
Assessor. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Now, how do I keep track of this? We've done it over here. Number 4 will be for Mary. What is your opinion? No, forget it. We already did that. What action do you feel should be taken regarding the library situation?
Skip
It's-
number 4.
Did I? Oh, I saw the opinion. I thought number 3 was already done.
Yeah,
Very much.
we have,
What would
Number
you do?
4. Number 4 on mine is, what would you do as an elected member of your board to encourage new business in the town?
I think what's important is, Warren has had for a long time a reputation of not being business welcome. And I think as a town, and every board needs to decide what type of business you want for this community. And then try to welcome that type of business into this community. But to welcome business into Warren, Warren's gonna have to make some changes. A business is not gonna wanna locate in downtown Warren because their employees won't be able to use cell phones. A business will have a tough time locating in downtown Warren because you really don't have good internet service. We need to have stability of municipal services. We need to have a strong fire and police department. We need to have the services available that a business wants. And we also have to decide as a group what type of business you want in this community. Everybody wants business, but they don't want it in their backyard. And what we have to do is decide where business would go and what type of business you think you want to bring in here. And then as a collective group, we need to come up with a plan on how to get those people here. Lots of communities have come up with what they call the real estate rodeo. Warren could do something like that. Groups of people get together, look at available properties that people may want to put out there for business, decide what kind of business that might want that property, and then call every commercial realtor in the state in one day and bring them around the town and show them what we can do for them. Show them what we can do, if we have tax abatements available, if they want to be a green company, push them towards the mill, they got water service there. We need to find out what the town wants. What do you want, where do you want to put it, and then go find it.
Thank you. Kyle?
I think first, in being on the finance committee, we've discussed this the last few years. We've looked at the master plan from 2006, and presently the finance committee is moving forward with trying to come up with options for the community moving forward. It is extremely important that we attract some business back to this town. Our residents cannot afford the tax base, the tax rate at what it's at. It's not going to go down if we don't do something to change the climate. We, as I campaigned and went around and spoke to residents, more and more residents that I speak to are looking at the glass as if it's half empty and not half full. We have to change the mentality and have a positive outlook on what we can bring in. It is a culmination of speaking to all residents and seeing what we actually want to bring into town. You know, I'm not welcoming in things like Walmarts and Big Ys and super Stop and Shops and things of that nature, but growth that we can handle and sustain, our fire, our police, with not impacting our infrastructure and creating too much of an impact on the waterways and the issues with the sewer. There's a lot that has to be said for when you bring in business and what types of business you bring in and how you go about doing it, whether it's tax incentives or whatnot. I have no problem, if I'm elected as a selectman, to go to surrounding towns and speak to businesses that are having an issue with the towns that they're presently in and trying to get them to come to our town and explaining to these businesses what we have to offer rather than what we don't have. Warren has a hell of a lot of great options out here, and we need to make that publicly known to people. I hear so many people discuss the fact that, well, where is Warren? What is Warren? We are a bedroom community. We need to change our identity. We have to move forward. Our local aid is decreasing, taxes are increasing, and we need to find a way to make it work. The school department's budget's not gonna decrease, other budgets aren't. Everybody knows it. In your own house, fuel's up, electricity's up, everything costs more. We can't keep cutting services to our town and cutting these departments. We have to entice business to come out here. And I think it's the responsibility of the select board to go out and solicit that business and find out what's out there. Speak to investors, speak to landowners, and see what they want to do with their property. And you have to work with all boards, the planning board, the planner. Everybody has to be involved in order for us to move forward. You can't just be elected into office and say, hey, I'm selectman, thanks a lot, 3 years, and here we go. I'm here to work for you. We have to work together to move forward. It's the only way we're going to get anywhere with this changing environment.
Thank you.
That's the first time I heard Dario speak, but he's on a 10-year plan, and I'm on the 3-year plan in this town. I'm devoting 3 years of my life to help this town. I'm also running for a seat on the planning board. This town needs to stop. It needs to do a 180-degree turnaround. And as far as bringing in new business and income, I'm suggesting utilizing the geography of this town and have like a snow tubing water slide park on any mountain in town. And I would push that through with the planning board, et cetera, et cetera. That could be, you've got to plant the seed. This town's in a mess right now. And you know, there is no money for seeds. And I don't even want to get into the reasons why, but there's a lot of money that can be saved and plant seeds. So all I'm hearing is we don't have money to plant the seed. We don't have money for this. We don't have money for that. Okay, well, my opinion is like I said, we can plant the seed on something. We have nothing right at this point. Nothing but wasted money. A lot of wasted money. Thank you.
It's not, I don't have a board, I won't have a board per se, I'm just a tax collector, and it's not really within my purview, but I would say that people are having trouble paying their taxes, and the tax rate is kind of high, and businesses that were here and have been here for a while have closed and have had to move on because people don't spend money that they have in town. Perhaps because they don't have as much expendable income as they used to go out, you know, to breakfast and then local kitchen or something like that.
I firmly believe business has to come into the town. You know, I've spoken to people that don't know the town well, and all they think about is driving right through the town on 67. There's not much to see there. I tell them, I constantly promote the town by saying, you know, you have to come here, you gotta take a ride up through, you know, Town Farm Road and all the other side roads. There's a lot of beauty here, a lot of great views. I, for one, just continually market the town. I promote it no matter what. I love Warren. This is home. It's going to be home. I don't know what steps would have to be taken, but word of mouth, I tell them where to go and what to see.
I just work with the board, the planner, to market the town. They had some good ideas in prior meetings about creating a link on our website, kind of off of what Mary was saying, to kind of bring the real estate market to us and promote what we have to offer, the buildings, empty buildings, and land, to be proactive in promoting business to come in, and also well-written bylaws and with resident input. And that's big, to get residents to come in and say what they would like to see with the bylaw. To obviously, any business that comes here is gonna look at what the town allows. So if the bylaws are written well, and that's the one chance to, for any resident to come in and, you know, express what they want on the bylaw. And any responsible business coming to town wants to be good neighbors, and they'll be able to accommodate most of what the town wants, little things.
Okay, everybody's had a chance to answer that question. We'll go to number 5. What action do you feel should be taken regarding the library situation as far as merging them? Dario?
Well, this has been a question that's been raised at Finance Committee and to many residents and board members the past 3 years that I can remember. Last year, they hired a new director. She came in front of our Finance Committee board at that time and was explaining how she was interested in merging the two, bringing them together. She had all these great ideas. Things really looked like it was moving forward, and we were moving towards a solution. And then I heard 2 weeks prior to them coming into our meeting at the Finance Committee that the director was no longer working for the Warren Library and was only working, or excuse me, the West Warren Library, and was only working in the Warren Library, that the board had removed her and asked her not to serve there. So I was a little disappointed to hear that. I felt that we had put a year into that and really had gone nowhere, and it's been a complete division of the 2 libraries and the 2 boards. Ultimately, moving forward, what I would like to see happen, I'd like to see the 2 boards merge. I would like to see one board, have them merge and work to consolidating to one library. I don't feel it does us any justice to have a library open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then a Tuesday, Thursday, opposite hours. I would like to see a library open Monday through Friday, with hours conducive to the residents and to our student base when they leave school if they can't find a book in their library in the building. But I think we need to move towards one library and offering a full week's worth of service of that library in one location to move forward. I just think paying rent and heat in 2 buildings, and it's a lot for the town to absorb at this point in time. There was a time back in the day when the libraries had a better participation rate. People were walking to the libraries. It was more convenient at that point in time, but it's a different age now, and the costs are extremely high, and like I said, their participation isn't warranted to have 2 libraries offered at this point in time, in my opinion. I would like to see them move towards a merge.
Thank you.
Same question.
Yes.
I absolutely, I'd like, well, if I'm elected as a selectman, I'll save you so much wasted money that we can have 3 libraries. And I absolutely think that we should have 2 libraries. It's a nice, you know, I don't think, libraries are in the middle, not at the bottom of my list, as far as what the town needs, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Karen, you want to respond to that?
It seems obvious to me that when you pool your resources and everybody pulls together, you know, you're gonna have a better result than when you parochialize it and you have Warren this and West Warren that, Warren this and West Warren that. So I would like to see them merged.
Okay, I think that a library would be the solution. There's nothing like holding a book in your hand, but with all the information available on the internet, I can't see justifying 2 libraries.
I think with a town our size, 2 libraries is a lot. You know, one library could service the town. Back in the day, maybe we could support 2 libraries. I think right now, you know, the economic conditions and everything, we probably should stick to 1.
All right.
I had the pleasure 2 years ago of sitting in on some meetings where the opening discussions were happening about merging the 2 libraries. And at the time, Selectman Sousa had suggested that in the merge, there should be some consideration, and it should be looked at whether the library should then become a town property. He did a lot of extensive research into that. At the time of the meeting, I remember this meeting very clearly, he said that it could be a big cost saving for the town. But at that time, there was a discussion that if the libraries merged, the major roadblock would be the merging of the 2 boards. But in a town that has so many problems and we need so many resources, having 2 libraries is not a financial it's not something the town can financially do. I think the town needs to have the libraries and have the computers. I was in the library on Saturday and there were people popping in and out using the computers. Not everyone can afford to have internet service, so the library provides that for them. So the library is a key service for our community, but I think it has to be physically looked at and it has to be something that we can afford.
Thank you. Everybody's had a chance? Here we go on number 6. This one is gonna be for 2. Oh, let's see. We don't have the one. I should have mentioned that Nathan could not be with us tonight, last minute commitment that he had to attend. So I'm gonna ask Mr. Corriveau, who's also going to be coming up first with this question. This is a planning board question. If anybody would like to respond to it after Mr. Corriveau's had his chance, feel free to raise your hand. With the town's current population growth in mind, what are your thoughts regarding a full-time planner? And what effect would there be on the other boards if the position were eliminated?
Well, the population growth right now, I mean, is what, we went from 5,000 to 4,000 so far. So, but it's all dollars and cents. If the man is bringing money into the town, fine. If not, we don't need him. And it's a small town also. I mean, how much is there to plan? The people in here, at this point, I'd say eliminate that position, and that's my opinion on that.
Okay.
If you want to know how it would affect the other boards, is that
Yeah.
the end of it?
That's the second.
Right now, everything is affected by the financial situation that the town's in, which is desperate. So, you know, that needs to be addressed right now, and then that will affect that.
Ms. Schmidt?
I'm not running for planning board.
That's right. I didn't know if anybody
I am.
had.
I'm running
Oh, that's
for
right. I'm sorry. I
Um,
got assessors and planning board and stuff.
You know, as it currently stands, the planner is a asset because he does go out and, you know, market the town on behalf of the planning board and the selectmen. He's working on the solar pilot for Spring Street right now. Without him, the boards would be more stressed, especially the planning board, select board. They'd have to pick up the workload. I think that could be done, but I think with the planner, his direction is to market the town into you know, craft, you know, responsible bylaws. Not to say that the planning board can't do that, but our town needs help bringing business in, you know, and he's helping currently.
Okay. Just another little side note. I'm just curious.
Can I interject?
Sure.
How is he helping?
Well, you
How-
can't, no
Okay,
discussion
okay.
between,
Okay.
I thought you were gonna ask me a question. Maybe you'll get a chance to, have any, just out of curiosity, have any of you seen, or do you have in your possession, the town's master plan?
Yes.
I've seen
I've
that
seen
tonight.
3?
Yes.
Just, those master plans are available in the town clerk's office, should anybody like to see one. We still have plenty. That committee worked several years to go where that is, and it's a good plan. It answers a lot of questions and gives the town planner guidance for where this town wants him directed. And that, a lot of that came from the citizens of this town by responding to our questionnaires. So it's an interesting book. Everybody should have a chance to at least look at it. All right. Question number 6. We'll start with Ms. Schmidt again. With the town's current population. Yeah,
Seven.
that was just a practice.
Yeah, Lori.
Capital planning is the way that towns set aside funds in order to plan for future capital expenses. Do you feel that practice is something that should be funded annually, and why?
Well, this is on the one hand and on the other hand, kind of an answer. I think that, yes, planning is very important, and it's important to save money for things that you're gonna want. On the other hand, again, the tax rate is high. People are having a hard time paying their taxes, and if that's gonna make the tax rate go up, you know, you have to find, the water has to find a level. I mean, you gotta stay in with what people can afford, and I think we're kind of stretching the bounds of that at this point.
Brian?
Well, the capital planning is done in every town, and I feel it's necessary. It should be funded. I mean, you have an annual budget, I figured that would be included. That's not something that would, you'd want to cut.
Okay.
I think it should be funded annually, but obviously with the economic condition of the town, if we can't, we can't. I mean, we can't keep jacking up the tax rate on everyone to fund for the future, but it's responsible to fund for the future. So it's a juggle act.
Stabilized balance funding is a key in good financial management. The town is always gonna need equipment, it's always gonna need rolling stock, it's always gonna need power on its roads. That's not gonna go away, and what happens is the town will not be making the best possible decisions if they don't do balanced funding. Balanced funding gives you the ability to balance out your costs over a period of year, not to take the hit in 1 year. So on any given year, you know that it's just like your mortgage on your house, you're paying your mortgage on your house. Balanced funding is like paying the mortgage on the town's assets. We can't, when you put yourself in a situation that you need a piece of equipment, you need it and you have to buy it, you are gonna hit your budget in one big hit instead of balancing it out. So it is a good financial tool to do balanced funding. And it may seem like this isn't a good year to do it, but next year is not gonna be a good year to do it, and the year after, and then when something goes, and then you have to spend $150,000 for a piece of equipment that you have to have, then that's really not a good year to do it. So balanced funding will actually stabilize the town's budget and give them a little bit more leeway into what they'll be able to buy and what they'll be able to spend.
Thank you.
It is extremely important that we find a way to fund capital planning. Capital expenditures are huge. They're not going away. We have to replace items, wear and tear items, whether it be ambulance, police cars, highway department vehicles, repairs on the school. It's important that we find a way to fund this. We can't rely on monies left over at the end of the year from free cash. I've heard a lot of residents since I've been campaigning suggest taking money out of stabilization to use to pay for some of the articles that are coming up. I am not in favor of touching our stabilization at all. That is one thing I would not be in favor of at all. Free cash has been shrunken down to very little due to the hard work of the finance committee and the people supplying us with their budgets, the department heads. We've trimmed them down to a level right now where we're running bare bones. So finding funds to be able to put into capital planning expenditures is difficult. How are we going to do that? We have to come up with a plan to do that. There has to be a way, because it's only going to increase our tax rate to continue to spend for things at the town meeting and put it on an article and say it's raise and appropriate to fund these things. We can't continue to just band-aid and fix things or replace a motor or fix the transmission on a vehicle, and it takes us 1 to 2 years, and then we're looking at a $38,000, $40,000 expense. We have to make more educated decisions on when we want to replace and when we want to repair, and it needs to be planned. Capital planning expenditures need to be presented to the capital planning board by September 1st. The department heads need to be responsible in submitting those requests to the capital planning board so it can be prioritized and thought out. Delayed request and putting them in late delays the process in moving forward. But putting money aside for that is extremely important moving forward.
Thank you.
I agree with everything Dario just said, and if I'm elected as selectman, I'll free up the money to take care of that situation.
Okay. Number 8 is going to be a question that I'm going to ask the candidates for the Board of Selectmen. Let's see if I can balance this out by saying, I'm going to start with, Mary. On number 8, several taxpayers ask why the selectmen put so many articles on the town meeting warrants to allow the voters to decide rather than denying these articles before they make it to the warrant. Would you, as a new board member, be in favor of continuing to bring essentially everything to the floor for a vote? Or have those asking for the article to petition for the one that was denied as required by Massachusetts general law?
My feeling on this issue is that we should be going with the second option. Unfortunately, in a town meeting process, it's very easy for a group of folks to get together to get their project funded. If you have enough people who will go to the meeting and you get enough votes, you're gonna get what you want. Or if you have enough people who are not gonna vote against something, you don't wanna vote on something, you can vote something down. So if the Board of Selectmen deny something going on the warrant, and they deny it based on good fiscal policy, and then the people who want that item, then they should have the right or privilege to go before Massachusetts general law and try to get what they want. But they should go through a process. And unfortunately, if a town of 4,800 people had 4,800 people showing up at the town meeting, then maybe there would be a much more balanced vote. But in a small town where there are small issues and people will take their issue upon their back and take it to the town meeting, what ends up happening is those who can get the support are gonna get what they want voted. So I would think that the selectmen, being involved with the town, working with the finance committee, working with the planning board, working with the board of health, working with the police department, the fire department, would have enough information to be able to make what they feel is a very good decision for Warren. And if the people who want it are that impassioned that they feel that it's something that it's that important to them, then they should have the right to go before Massachusetts general law.
I don't want to take that away from our residents to be able to vote on an article at a town meeting. I think what we need to look at moving forward is presenting more information to the public prior to the meeting. I spoke to a gentleman in a surrounding town who says they very rarely argue anything on the town floor. Things are brought up prior to the meeting, articles, large purchases, items of concern to the residents prior to the town meeting, and it's discussed and there's a consensus then. I never ever want to take away any right of our residents to vote on anything we plan on doing as a town, on any purchases or articles or things of that nature. I don't think it's in my best interest to make the decision for the town to take something off of the town meeting. I would rather it be discussed on the floor or prior to that, transparency, get the information out to the public. I think the finance committee personally has worked hard. We're trying to put out some paperwork presently to get you some more information on our town meeting that's upcoming. It is important that you educate the residents, and then we'll make better decisions at the town meeting as a group, not one individual or 3 individuals making those decisions for you. I just don't agree with that. I think it should be brought to the town floor still.
I agree with everything that Dario just said, but I would also add that we shouldn't have any voice counting. It should all be by hand or secret or whatever. No voice. I saw some errors in that at the last meeting. Counting errors and people getting confused.
Right, that was directed at the 3 selectmen, just to explain a little about how the petition article works. If the person comes before the board and it's frivolous or it's what you call a silly article, and the selectmen say, we're not going to allow it, they only have to go out and get 10 votes at an annual town meeting. Any meeting, an annual town meeting is appropriating funds. A special town meeting, a person to get an override must get 100 votes. So that's what we've been talking about. And there are some feelings regarding that. All right, now we're back to another one that is also for the selectmen. And this time I'll start with Dario. A significant number of people asked why the Board of Selectmen put so much stock in the Citizens Action Committee and seemed to take the group more seriously than other residents or boards. Would you, as a selectman, bring that concern to the other board members?
I would. I think all boards and committees are extremely important and the work that people do for the town. Generally, when groups and committees form, they have general concerns of importance to them and others. And as a select board member, I would embrace those concerns. They need to be heard. Everybody has a voice. No committees are more important than other committees or boards. So I think that it's an extreme concern of mine that they seem to think that we're putting more concerns into that board or that committee than others. They're all very important, and they all serve an extremely important purpose for our town and our community.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, I went to a lot of these CAC meetings, and I saw one time a selectman show up there. So the question doesn't make any sense to me, because wouldn't you show up to the meetings if you put so much stock in them? And so I don't agree with that. But I don't think you should eliminate, it's just like children, you don't favor one over the other, you listen to all of it, to answer the second part of the question. But the question is wrong to me.
Mary?
I applaud the members of the CAC as a group of concerned citizens. They banded together, they have their agenda, they have the things that they want to work on, they have the things that are important to them. And one of the nice things about being in this country is that each and every one of us has that right of privilege. We should get together with people who have the same concerns we have. We should be talking with people about what is important to us. And the fact that they have gotten together as a collective group and have maintained their group, and they're committed to their group and their ideals, I think is commendable. I think that, from what I have seen, I don't think that any board or the selectmen are paying more attention to them. I just think that they're just actively involved and they're stepping up and making their voices heard, and that should be commended.
Thank you. Right now we're back to questions that are going to be answered by everybody. And we're going to start with Brian Croft. The school budget, especially this year, is a combined increase of over $750,000 between the two towns. Is it time to tell the district, trim more of your annual increases or keep approving them as presented?
I'm not familiar at all with the school budget at this time. I believe there's a meeting coming up.
There was a meeting last night.
Oh, okay.
There was a joint meeting between West Brookfield's Advisory Board, Warren's Finance Committee, and the two school committees,
Okay, well, that's nothing, I'm not familiar with any part of that.
town school. Okay. Ed?
The school's a very important asset to the community, but, it goes up 100, 200, 300, 400,000 every year. I think it is time for them to limit those increases. You can't just give them a blank check every year.
Okay.
I had the privilege of speaking with the superintendent at a meeting, and I did have some questions for him. My own personal concerns are concerning the quality of education that I feel the Warren elementary children are getting, and I didn't feel like I got a really valid answer. I think that we, as a town, should expect to see our kids thrive, and I think that all kids in the school system should be given the same types of opportunities. The graduation rate right now going on to college is actually lower than 6-7 years ago. The amount of alternative types of education that are available for those children who are not going on to college are actually drying up. I commend the Quabog School District for their commitment to STEM. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, but we need to think about the children who are not going to go on to college and be an engineer. And I think that a lot of the programs over there, the AP programs, they're wonderful for the college kids, but we're leaving a lot of the kids behind. So I think that I think that the school committee should look at what they are actually offering over there, what they're servicing for the children, and maybe doing a realignment of the types of classes and maybe cutting some of the AP program and adding some classes in for the kids who are not gonna go on to college.
This was a huge issue last night at the meeting. It's been a major concern of the Finance Committee, myself, and a lot of people in town. We've funded the schools for years. The school really hit a low some years back, and I think Brett and his staff need to be commended for the job they've been doing. Our schools are performing well. They need to be funded. But at this point in time, our towns need it a little bit more than the school department does. The teachers received an increase for the next 3 years. I look at this year as a finance committee member and how we're going to fund this, and I worry more about year 2 and 3 down the road, and where are we gonna go with this? When are we gonna stop it? The meeting last night, we were all over the place with this. We need to give them something. We cannot give them the full amount that they're requesting. It's impossible for us. It would cause too many departments to have to be closed. It would cause layoffs within police and fire possibly. It is extremely important that we work together with the school department at this point in time. The school department has driven, our property values. It seems to be what we've been funding for years now. Obviously, people having children in the school system, it's extremely important to them. But we have to balance our budget, and we have to look at the town's needs right now. And the town is in dire need of an infuse of money and some help with their buildings and their infrastructure. The school will receive something, in my opinion, not the amount, but I think we made a lot of headway last night with the help of Sue Coma, our finance committee chairperson. I give her a lot of credit for that meeting last night, putting it together. We worked extremely hard. I think there were some reasonable numbers put out. I think the school will do well with that. One thing that bothers me that the school will always present to us is it's always the teachers that they put on that list. When it's a serious cut, it's 5, 10 teachers that are going to be eliminated, and look at the impact on your students. I have issue with that because we don't look at the administrators. We don't look at the higher up salaries. It's always the Indians that are looking to get cut, and it's not the chiefs. We're always looking at the lower end and how it's going to affect our children. That's how we play out to the public. When it should be looked at as the chiefs and what's happening on the higher end. And we need to seriously look at transportation next year. It is a huge cost to us. We don't receive that funding for regional transportation, and I think next year moving forward, it's an issue that I am going to take up as to how we're going to fund transportation, because it's a huge number and it could help offset a lot of problems for our town and our communities. Thank you.
My turn, sir?
Yes.
I feel, we're talking kind of for nothing here. It's more of a state issue. I mean, we have to give 50% to the schools, and whatever the percentage is. I had nuns in school, okay, and they didn't get a penny. And every person in my, all through until I was 18 years old, every person in my class went to college. And those nuns taught like 5 classes each, and it didn't cost anything. Anyways, that's more of a state issue. Also, the predicament we're in now, I would rather have the money and give it to the school, or say no to the school, than just not have the money and be stuck.
Thank you.
I love the schools. I've got a little girl who attends the elementary school, and all the teachers, the administrators, the programs there are great in the elementary school. I'm the biggest cheerleader for that school. That said, times are tight. I mean, when the budget gets tight in my household, we go into conserve mode and we level fund things. And other departments in the town have been level funded without anybody getting laid off. And I realize the school department budget is a bigger apple, and there are other expenses that figure into it. But I think when everybody else has to level fund, then everybody has to level fund.
I answered the question.
Just check it, see. That's right, you did. All right, we have another question for just the selectmen. As I stated before, if you want to jump in after, just raise your hand. This question will start with, let's see, we started with Mary. Yeah, we'll start with Brian. Emergency fire and police services are often passed over to the fall special meeting. As a candidate, do you feel there are ways to ensure that the emergency services get what they are required to have according to the state's governing agency regulation changes? which affects funding requests.
Well, I feel that's on the top of my list as far as any income that comes into the town, and they should absolutely have everything they need. And it shouldn't even be a question.
I was quite surprised when I started digging into town records. 10 years ago, the police department accounted for 9.7% of the town's budget. In 2012, it was only 8.8. These folks have done a phenomenal job by keeping their costs in line. The SSI cost of living raises over the last 10 years have been 21%. They have maintained their budgets. The inflation rate is 31.5 over that 10-year period, that these folks have maintained. They've actually dropped their cost. I took a ratio of how many calls they get, how many incidents they get, how many arrests they get. And in 2003, it was costing the town $50.54 for every police action. In 2012, it's down to $48.12. So they are really bucking the system. They're doing a great job with what little they have. The fire department, their per call cost for that same period was in 2003, averaged $996. In 2012, it dropped down to $875. They're actually doing a lot more with less. So these are two groups. In 2003, your fire department accounted for almost 5% of your town's budget. In 2012, it wasn't even 3%. And the ambulance, with its ability to give fees back to the town for its services, is actually coming in at less than 1% of the town budget in 2012. So these are three services that have really served the town and are really keeping these costs in line. I think it's important that people fund what they need, because we can't send people out in cruisers that don't run. We can't send people out with a truck that's not going to pump. They have to have the equipment to do their job.
Okay, once again, we go back to capital planning. For these large ticket expenses, it has to be thought out by the department heads and brought to capital planning so we can plan appropriately as a town to pay for these large expenses. Our police department needs vehicles. Our fire department is requiring a new ambulance. The building needs help. Our police department building needs help. We need to fund these services to make sure that our residents, our elderly, our children, ourselves are taken care of when a call goes out. I feel very strongly that we invest in these. I think we need to maintain these. We can't keep band-aiding them like I said before. So when the monies are there and we plan it properly, we can fund these projects and take care of it, but it has to be thought out and planned. I would rather replace some of these products that are failing and in need of repair and have a better plan moving forward, rather than come to us and say, hey, guess what? 3 of my cruisers are pretty old. We had to replace the transmission and a motor. If it's a yearly thing that we need to start replacing vehicles, or we can skip a year here and there, it's much better to spend that $38,000 that way than trying to spend $120,000 to replace 3 vehicles. And maintaining old vehicles and not retiring these vehicles is important too, because it's an insurance cost. So we need to make sure that we're getting rid of the old vehicles, maintaining the vehicles that are usable and we need, but funding these services. We can't take away from our police and our fire or our highway department, for instance, because our roads are horrible right now. So those are extremely important things that as a town we need to look at annually and plan accordingly. This summer, these projects should be planned out moving forward into next year, not in December and January. And we'll work extremely hard to discuss these with some of the department heads and go over some of their capital planning expenditures and say, hey, where are we going? What do we need to do to keep this department running viable and maintaining the service that our residents are required to have as taxpayers?
Thank you. Getting back to all. Question 12, we'll start with Ed. What concerns do you have regarding any plans for the former town hall renovations, repairs, or reuse?
Well, obviously, it's a beautiful building in the center of our town. I don't think any one of us wants to see it torn down. I don't. But the cost, to do anything there. I mean, if I had the answer to what to do with that building, I'd probably be running from one of their seats over there, because I don't.
Thank you.
Town hall is the center of the town. It's in every picture of the town. But the town as a collective group needs to decide what they want to do with the building. Leaving it as a police station, if it's not functional, it's not gonna work. Just having it as a beautiful eyesore in the town, it's costing us money. There should be a committee put together that plans on what to do with that building. What's gonna be cost effective, what can go into that building, how can that building service the community, and where will the funds come to fix that building? Is there a way to try to get public funding for it? Is there a way to get some private funding for it? Is there any way to try to go to any commission who can give us some historical money for it? But before anything is done, there has to be a plan on what you want to do with it. And I think it needs to be a collective decision by the town. But I think it's every picture of Warren going back, it has that beautiful building. And a lot of people equate that building with Warren. So it's critical that we keep it, but I think it's important that we make a decision on what to do with it.
Thank you. I think it's important that we keep the building. The residents that I spoke to have mixed feelings on this. I don't know how we can afford to actually repair it, the cost that we would need to put into that with the water filtration that's coming to the basement with the mold issue. I don't think our police department should be in there presently. I think they should be located somewhere else. I actually, with the downtown project coming in next summer and what we're planning on doing downtown, I think that the building has a need and importance. I would like to see our town offices back in that building if it can be done, and be that community building. I don't particularly like seeing the police cars in the center of town when I drive in the center of my town. I wish they were somewhere else. It doesn't seem like it's an inviting town center when you have 3 or 4 police cars parked around the building and we're lacking parking spaces as it is. Businesses can't find places for people to park. People won't stop because there's police vehicles there. So I think the town hall has purpose. How we are going to be able to afford it and move forward is another question, and I don't have that answer right now. I know our committees in town have worked extremely hard. They put a new bulkhead on there. They were in there this past weekend on the 2nd floor. I just recently toured the building about 3 weeks ago for the first time and went on the 2nd floor, and it's an amazing sight to see. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like back in the day, having the stage and watching people up there perform and dance, and the woodwork that's in there. It's an impressive spot. But it has to be repurposed, and it is the center of our town, and I think it'll be a beautiful addition to the town if we can find a repurpose for that and the means to do it. But it has to be done. We can't just keep putting a little bit of money at it and fixing a few problems, and then the mold comes back, or the windows are still covered and they've wiped mold and it's growing back in the workout room again. It's not healthy for the police department to be in there. So action has to be taken. We have to stop being reactive and be proactive to the situation and devise a plan and move forward with it and go. And stop talking about it and do it and figure out what we want to do as a group, as a committee, as a town. Thank you.
Well, I think one of the biggest shames in this story here is that the money was misused along the way, so the building was not maintained. The second question I have is, can we tear the building down, or do we have to fix it up as a historic building? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
No. That question will be answered in the future.
Well, I mean, that bears all on the situation to me.
All right, questions coming from the moderator. Okay.
I tend to be a nostalgic person. My house is 100 years old, and we've put a lot of money into maintaining and keeping it up to date, but it's been a hit. I mean, we could have had a nice big new house with the money that we've spent on this one. It's a decision that you have to make. I mean, the town has to make. It's going to be a cost, and it may hurt, but you just have to decide who wants the history. It's sad to see a piece of history in the whole town go.
Personally, I can't understand why the police are in there. I have heard, and I heard from reliable people that there was like a lot of problems. Even after money was put in, bigger problems came to arise. If the building were to remain, I think it would make a great library. But I don't, from what I'm hearing, I think it would cost way too much to maintain that building or get it up to par.
Okay, at the end. The next question is going to be for the only candidate here that's running for the Board of Assessors. Many citizens have a vast misunderstanding of the assessment process. As an assessor, how would you address those concerns with the other board members?
Okay, maybe a lot of people are familiar with the situation. Former assessor, Don Dorfer, the late Don Dorfer was a friend of mine, and he had passed away, and 3 months later, a vacancy, his position came into vacancy. And Don wanted to live, he knew he was dying, he wanted to live to finish out his term. So in the spirit of his memory, I was compelled to apply. I applied, I was interviewed and appointed. So I began the position in January. I've worked with Mr. Blackwell and Mr. Shields, and they're perfect gentlemen, kind, and very understanding, and we discussed these things. So there's already, they do their best to explain the process to residents that aren't aware.
I think it'd be a good idea, just to drift a little, I know it's not in there, but under that same thought, you think it'd be a good idea for maybe them to have a program that presented on the local channel or meetings where people can come in and actually ask the question? I know you have meetings that they can attend, but are those evening meetings?
No, they won't.
Okay. Now, we're down to item number 14. And we're gonna start with, I believe, we'll start with Brian. Did everybody get a chance to answer that question? Did anybody want to address that question? So I'm gonna start with Mary on this question. And it goes for everybody. Is there one issue that is important to you that you would like to see addressed at your board meeting?
I would like to see the Board of Selectmen being a much more engaging and encompassing group. I would like to see a lot of interaction. I would like to see back a return to an older time, a later time when, there was discussion. It's very interesting to walk the streets and talk to people. It's very interesting to get people's opinion, and I think that's really important. And I think as a board member, it's really important to talk to people. I've enjoyed standing down at the post office, and I can see myself standing down at the post office every Saturday for the next 5 years, because I actually enjoy seeing people who come into the post office, chatting with them and ask them how they're doing. But I think that's what's really, I would like to see happen, is that there be a more encompassing, more engaging, more welcoming meeting to come to. I would like to see people want to come to the meeting, participate in the meeting, and be part of the process. And I would like to see the board reach out to people to get their opinions.
My most important issue right now, and I would like to see the board address, and if I was a member of that board, would be our tax base and how we're going to attract new revenue into our community to help offset the burden of the taxpayer. If we don't fix this problem, people are going to move. People aren't going to be able to afford to live here if our tax rate goes into the 20s, okay? Once people start to move, then that tax burden is going to be put off on more taxpayers and the people that are remaining here. So if we don't start to be proactive to this and start finding a way to bring in small business and start filling some of these vacant buildings and get people in here, we're going to have a bigger issue 2-3 years down the road. My most important issue at this point in time is to fix that and to go out there and promote our town and to bring business into the town that want to pay taxes, that want to help us and want to provide a service to us that we actually want. Small stores, little restaurants, things of that nature to get us going and get a kickstart into our economy to help the residents in your tax burden. That is our biggest concern at this point in time, is our taxes.
Thank you.
Well, I agree, the tax situation is a serious issue that needs to be addressed, but I'm open to anybody at any meeting speaking about anything. And and on the planning board, I think that we need to figure out a way to get new income into this town. The town is in a bad situation, and that's basically the most important issue that I can see, and that would affects all the issues. But everybody, I'll stay as long as I have to, to answer anybody's question about anything.
I'm glad to hear that people are concerned about the tax rate. I may sound like a one-hit wonder, but I'm telling you, that's the song they sing in my office every single day, is why is the tax rate so high? And that's, I don't have a board to address it with or anything like that, but I think that's a major concern in this town.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Last question.
14 monthly.
Oh, I don't have any issues with the board, no, I don't, I'm sorry. I was busy following them, they all seem to have the same issue. All right, thank you.
All right, that's-
Obviously, the planning board's an immense responsibility to, craft responsible bylaws to help bring business in the town. Taxes, this is, number one on the list. I'd also like to see, more resident participation and, hopefully work with the board to, figure out a way to include more people, to advertise differently than what's been going on, because I know, talking to the board, they've sat in a lot of informational meetings for certain bylaws with no one showed up. So there's gotta be a better way to get the word out there and to bring people in, because that's what the board wants, that's what I want, is, more participation, from the town to hear what their concerns are.
Okay, everybody's got to answer that question. Just to remark a little about bylaws. Bylaws in this town and in every town, although written up by the board, require hearings and are approved by the residents and voters of this town at a meeting. They are not made up, they're just presented without the approval of the citizens of this town. We're at the end of the question period. There's going to be 5 minutes for you to address the board. As you can see, I've been a little lenient with the time. I'd like to hold it down to 5, unless, if you've got something that appears to be redundant, try to skip over it and speak whatever you'd like to say. And after that, I am gonna just drift a little away from this and ask if there's any unopposed candidates in the room that would like to just stand up and make a brief statement and give them the chance. And we will start this time with Ed. I'll come around this way.
Well, I'd like to thank you for this time to so you guys can get to know us. I'm running for planning board. I think I have a level mind to hopefully make some sound decisions. I'll listen to anyone. That's why I got involved with this, because I felt left out of the process. I hate to see anyone feel that way. So I think I'd be a level head in the planning board seat.
Thank you. Next.
I had the privilege of overhearing someone tell me the other day that I was running on my family's name. And I am running on my family's name. My family goes back to 1912 in this town. My grandfather opened a store here. My aunt still lives in Quabog on the Common. My father loved this town. My entire family is in public service. Every member of my family has worked for the state or a public school system or the court systems or the state police. I am a black sheep. So I would like to bring some of my skills to this town. I'm skilled at conflict resolution. I deal every day with customer complaint and customer problems. I develop staff. I interview and develop hiring models for people all the way minimum wage up to CEOs. I've negotiated contracts that have been in the tens of millions of dollars. I've had bottom line responsibility of over $120 million on a yearly basis. I've done project management, I'm certified project manager, and I've done $20 million projects. I'm Six Sigma certified. I'm a certified auditor. But I have a real passion for process. And I think that's what this town is lacking, a process. To get on the track to solve problems. How do you solve problems, bring the problem forward? How do we resolve the problems? That's what I think the town needs. When I start digging through numbers, I think what's glaring, what a lot of people don't realize is we want business to come into the town. But in the last 10 years, this town has lost over 250 taxable parcels. We were at one point in 2003 through 2000.